Episode 10.
Are you ready to take your eBay business to the top? Well, if so, buckle up and hold on. It's time once again for So You Want to Sell on eBay with your hosts, Ron LeBeau and Ali Young.
Creating an eBay store these days is not that difficult a task. Creating a custom eBay store is. So if you're thinking of starting an eBay business, or even if you're a titanium power seller, let the professional team at AuctionProTemplates.com create a custom eBay store for you.
Welcome once again to another episode of So You Want to Sell on eBay. I'm Ron LeBeau.
And I'm Ali Young.
We have with us today Jackson Baer, and Jackson is coming to us from North Georgia. How you doing, Jackson?
Hey, guys. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us today, Jackson. Are you ready for some fun?
I am. Always ready for fun.
Excellent.
Jackson Baer is happily married with 4 kids, and he launched NameBrandThrift.com in September of 2013. He is also the author of 2 books, The Earth Bleeds Red and What the Hell. He writes in his free time, plays with his kids, and enjoys thrifting with his family. Jackson, I've told our listeners just a little bit about you, but if you want to, please elaborate and tell us more about you personally.
So I was born and raised in Georgia. I actually met my wife in Oklahoma at a Bible school. We fell madly in love. We got married. And young, too. I was 19, she was 22, and 12 years later, we're still married. We've got 4 kids, and we've lived all over the United States.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. I have 4 kids as well. What do you got, boys, girls?
2 of each, you know. We got it right the first 2 times. We had the girl, the boy, but she kept making me have more.
Yeah, I've only managed 4 girls at the moment. I think I haven't got that male seed or something.
Oh, I got you. Wow, 4 girls. I feel for you, my friend.
Yeah, I feel for myself. That's
I've got you both beat with 5 kids, so...
all right, what is this, a kid podcast?
Yeah.
Excellent. So what made you write the books then? I see, like Ron said, you got a couple of books. Did you... It's just ideas, was it? Or you felt like inspiration?
Yeah, inspiration. I guess I actually went back to college at Oregon State University 4 years ago. And, you know, through taking writing classes, I'm an English major, and I'm actually just about to graduate this term. I started taking writing classes and just, you know, fell in love with writing, storytelling, reading, just kind of took off from there. So I wish I could do it full-time, but it's hard to make it as an author.
Yeah, it's a lot, I imagine. So are you a spell check man, or you don't need any of that?
No, I still need some. You know, I'm okay, but I still need some spell check.
Okay, well, let's get started with an impact person. This is where we like to start the show off, because we found that there's mainly always been someone who's been important in these people's lives. Did you have someone in your life who sort of helped you along the way, gave you some guidance?
I did. I had several, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick my dad. He was the hardest worker I ever knew, and he owned a construction business, and so I grew up working. Every summer vacation, every Christmas break, many times after school or on the weekends, you know, I was toting lumber, helping lay sod, carrying shingles, painting. And so, you know, there was that getting up at 6 a.m. Work was just natural for me. So, you know, I owe a lot to him. He instilled in me a tough work ethic. Just whatever you have to do to get it done, you do it. And so, you know, that helped me through life. So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit to, you know, do my own lawn business or cleaning business, and then finally evolving as a 30-year-old starting a thrift shop.
Wow, that's cool. You know, I did something similar when I was younger, and during high school, and actually before high school. I worked for my uncle who owned a construction company as well, and you know, while all my friends were looking forward to summers, I was thinking, oh goodness, oh here comes another one, you know. So we did get up early, and we worked late at night too. So, and for peanuts, really. You know, I'm going to tell this story because he's probably going to hear this one day. But I worked for 12.5 cents an hour for him, and I made $8 in one day. Right, for an 8-hour day, I made $1.
Wow.
And you know, he says that you know, it was my parents' way of getting him to babysit me. So yeah, that's how that rolls.
So that sort of stemmed from your dad. He taught you the way that allowed you to sort of grow in your businesses?
It did. And when I started my senior year in high school, I was ready to go out on my own. So, you know, I talked to my dad man to man. It was tough for me because I was a little scared I was going to, you know, hurt his feelings, or, you know, maybe he would say, no, you have to stay and work with me. But, you know, he supported me. I started my own lawn business. And as a senior in high school, I was making $400 to $500 a week, every week.
Nice.
And I figured, you know what, I can do this. I can have my own business and, you know, be successful doing it.
And did you employ people, or did you do all the work yourself at the beginning?
I did almost all of it myself, and then, I had another friend in high school who, when I had too many lawns, he would come help me, and I'd pay him, and so, it was kind of a win-win.
Sounds like it. That's great. It's great to see the motivational behind it. And you still do that today, do you?
Nope, just the thrift shop, actually. I started that a little over a year ago, and it took off much quicker than I ever could have expected or hoped for, and, I'm just really thankful where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jackson, as you know, as an entrepreneur, the goal for entrepreneurship is to succeed, right? But sometimes we have failures. Everyone has failures personally and in business. So tell us a little bit about a failure that you had and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I'd say a failure I had was maybe a business I tried when I was younger. I want to say 19 or 20. I was in college the first time, and my wife and I, we did a cleaning business. And we got clients, we had houses to clean, and we did a good job with it, but we were never able to make enough to support ourselves full time, and so that was something I had to shelve and go find a regular job. Experiencing defeat, if you want to call it that, it just helped motivate me to find things that do work, find things that don't work, and cleaning definitely wasn't my passion. It was a means to something we needed at the time.
Definitely. So, and you scrubbed yourself down, got back up, and away you went again, did you?
Exactly. After that, my wife and I, we spent 7 years actually in youth and children's ministry. And so I did kind of like a teaching pastor, a youth pastor, did some music and stuff like that, and really enjoyed our time. The biggest obstacle to that was we were all over. We spent time in California, Connecticut, and Oregon. Being away from family was tough for us, and I've actually been out of ministry for 3 years now. We're probably the happiest we've ever been. I mean, just working for ourselves, spending more time with the kids. It's a place in life where we need to be and want to be right now.
Good to hear, man. That's awesome to hear.
It is, and and it's also great to hear that you sort of get back up, because there is that point where a lot of people can quit at that point. But you realize what you want. You realize that you want to be around your family, and you make it work. It's really a good message.
We did it a year ago, actually last July, so 2013. We loaded up our minivan, 4 kids, our one-eyed pug, and everything that we could fit.
One-eyed pug?
Everything we could fit in and on it. And we had, that snorting dog. If you know a pug, they've got a loud breathing to them. So it was quite the drive from Oregon to North Georgia. But we made it.
A one-eyed pug.
A one-eyed pug, yep.
Jeez, poor little, what happened to him?
It's a girl. Her name's Lilo, and we got her a couple years ago from a family, and they said it just got infected one day. They took her to the vet, and she lost the eye. It was one of those things, yeah.
Poor thing. And imagine it doesn't scare the kids, no?
No, they love her, and
they love her.
She's just a ball of energy, so, yeah.
Yeah, exactly it. Obviously, you've had lots of successes, but is there any one in particular that sort of stands out for you, that sort of told you that you're heading down that right road?
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is, it's almost surreal at times. I've gotten a bit more used to it, but it's just to think that, you can sell things on eBay and actually make a living doing it. It almost seems like a pipe dream. It sounds like one of those fads, but, I've got over 1,000 things up right now and keep over 1,000 things up. I have over 1,500 positive feedbacks in the past year. It's something that I do. My wife helps me. My dad likes to go thrifting with me, and my kids love it too. And they have a chance to make money helping me find things when we go out looking for items to sell. It's a lot of fun. It's just crazy how it all came together, but actually what I'm living right now, it's hard to believe at times.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, I love how you are teaching your children to be entrepreneurs as well at a young age, how they can go out and they can, learn how to thrift and then, make some profit of themselves. Because for me, I grew up in the corporate world, and, entrepreneurship is something I've always looked for. So I think that's awesome to teach kids the entrepreneur spirit at a young age.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. My 9-year-old son is the second oldest, and he's got the knack. He knows the name brands to look for. He knows where to look for, problems with the item, like to know if it's something we should or shouldn't buy. He's got the eye for it. So it's pretty cool to see him, bring a cart full of items to me, and we go through them together, and he just smiles so big. And then, some things he'll buy with his own money. I'll put it up for sale for him, and then he gets all the profit. And other times I just give him a commission when he doesn't want to spend his money on it. So it's fun.
Yeah, and it's really crazy. Just last night I told my wife, I said, let's just for the heck of it here, let's go in the Goodwill here and just see, what these eBay guys do, right? So I went into this Goodwill, and I'm like looking at all this knick-knack stuff, and I'm like, hey, how do you know what's going to sell, and how do you know what's not going to sell? It's crazy. You guys that do it well are amazing, and it's a talent. It's an art.
It kind of is, and it's also trial and error, to be honest with you. Things that are expensive the first time through are often going to be expensive the second time through, but, that's not always the case, and sometimes you buy things and you're a little disappointed. Although I would imagine doing this 10, 15 years ago would have been more difficult. Now, you have a smartphone with you, you can search things, and the first few months of doing this, man, it took me so long to buy because I was always searching to find out if I should buy it, if I could make money on it, if it was worth it at that price. But now we've gotten to a point where I can pretty much know just by the feel of a clothing whether or not it's going to be good, if it's a brand I've never heard of. And then obviously we've had enough practice now where we know most of the brand names that are going to do well.
When you say thrifting, I'm British, and that's not actually a common term. So you're going out, you're going to markets, you're going to car boot sales, you're going to auctions, you're going to places like that and buying your products to sell on eBay. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. I mean, we hit yard sales sometimes and try to find nice things there. Looking through thrift shops, there's you have to go through a lot of weeds to find the good items. But, the thing that surprised me the most was how many things I find that are brand new with tags. About 20% of the items we find are actually brand new. And so I really like to do that as well. It helps make it a little bit more upscale because some people, they don't want to go to thrift shops. And we actually provide a service for people who they don't want to go do the digging for themselves, or maybe they're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but they're living in California or they're living in Ireland or another country, and hey, there it is. There's a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, and so it's a win-win for everybody.
That's pretty cool. And you say you have over 1,000 items in your store right now. That's amazing, and especially if you're not doing any drop shipping, and those are all like physical items.
Physical items. I converted a garage to what you would call a store or a storage room. My dad and I put shelves on the walls and tables and racks, so everything that needs to be hung up is hung up. Everything that needs to be folded is folded nicely, so that way when people order an item, I go out there, I got a shipping table and the whole process now, and it's all right here.
And do you ever, we spoke to someone else before who does stuff like that, do you have a rule that you never keep what you buy, you always sell it?
Well, that's funny. I almost never keep what I buy. My wife, on the other hand,
there we go.
She's a little bit more difficult. And when she listens to this, she's going to laugh because she knows it's the truth. But she has good taste. Let's just put it that way. So some of the better things that we find when it happens to be her size, a lot of times she'll just trade something for it. That way it's not like we're hurting the business. Sometimes I have a soft spot in my heart and I'll actually give her something. So my family, they tease me that I'm a stickler. But, I'm the youngest of 5 and I got 4 kids, and there's cousins everywhere, so I can't be giving away everything, but for myself, I almost never keep anything really good, unless I'm out looking for myself. But if it's out for business, I will very, very rarely keep anything for myself.
Yeah, just don't let her buy a pair of boots that just so happen to be her size, because you might not be able to put those on eBay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Good. That's a good rule of thumb, really. Otherwise, you'll end up not having any products to sell, really.
Yeah, that's the truth, and that's the only reason why. But we do have special times where we go out with the goal in mind of finding stuff for ourselves and for our kids, and so then it's okay to get the good stuff and keep it.
Let's look at your current eBay business. I know you talked about your garage is now it's your thrift store, or do you have a brick and mortar store as well?
No, all online. The garage is just I call it my store, but it's really storage is more accurate. People don't come look through it. It's all sold online. I just haven't had the need to do the brick and mortar. I sell enough online that's sufficient. I've thought about it, but I really don't want to go down the road right now of finding a place and all those bills and overhead, and it's just not what I'd like to do right now, that's all. Extra
insurance and everything else, it's just not worth it, especially if you're making a decent living doing it this way. Why would you even consider that, right?
Exactly. I'm not rich, but I'm also not poor. I'm able to provide for my family, and I've got a roof over my head, so I'm happy.
Yeah, so have you got people working for you as well, have you?
Not yet, but, I have some free labor. My dad loves to go hang out with me and help me, and so that's good free labor that just costs me food and coffee. And and my wife, she helps me a lot, too. So, I don't have to pay for any labor right now, which is great.
That is great. So you maintain it all yourself pretty much, when it comes to doing the eBay part, your listing, your customer service, your sort of bit of everything, yeah?
Exactly, yeah.
So that's your current business. What always fascinates me is how did you get to this point? So you sort of leave high school, you might have had a few beers or whatever it was. What made you end up here? How did you end up here? I know you mentioned a little bit before.
Right. So I tried a couple businesses as far as landscaping and cleaning, and then I spent 7 years in the ministry, and then after that, I actually started trading, and that's what got me into thrifting, to, the eBay business. Was I started trading things. I saw that show on TV. It's called Barter Kings.
Yes.
And I watched it, and I thought, I could do that. And I got pretty good people skills. And so I started to get on Craigslist, and I would look for trading. And so I started trading a lot. And this is back when I was in Oregon. And right before I moved here, I was trying to sell my car. And I couldn't find a buyer, but I ended up selling it for a new diamond ring for my wife.
Wow.
and some cash. And so at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I can, start trading a little bit more and, help us get more stuff, especially when we get to Georgia. We're going to need furniture and, just all kinds of things. So when we got to Georgia, I started trading, and I ended up, before I moved here, I bought an autograph collection, like 30 autographs, really, really nice ones, for a couple $100 from this kid from the University of Oregon. He needed to get rid of it. I had the cash, and it just all worked out perfectly. So when I got to Georgia, I ended up trading that for couches and chairs and TVs and trunks. And we basically furnished over half of our house with just trading. No cash, no money, just trading. And so I thought, well, I could trade and trade up a little and then start to sell some of that. And that's how the eBay business started. I just came from buying, selling, and then thinking, okay, here's where I'm actually making money, is buying low and selling high, but lower than the rest.
Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds like a fun lifestyle. So have you ever, I've always wanted to do this thrifting, but, Thailand, we don't really do it that much. But have you ever gone out and saw something and found it and then made sort of a really big profit on it? Have you really, can you think of a product in particular where, wow, that one was well worth buying?
I have. The majority of what we buy is clothing. It's just people always need it, people always want it, and, I can get it at a low price. So clothing is pretty much all. But there have been times where we bought jerseys or things like that for between $1 and $5, and then we sold it for $80 to $120. My biggest one was probably at an estate sale. I bought an art collection. I've sold 3/4 of it, and I've already doubled my money, and that one was a really, really good buy.
That feels good, right, when that happens?
It does, because that one was a little bit risky, because I don't normally spend a lot of money, and that was way different than what I normally do. But after research, I went ahead and I took the risk, and thankfully it paid off.
Yeah, so you talk about that research then. So you, before going into these thrifting and these markets and stuff, you have, and I think you mentioned it before, but you have a sort of understanding of what this is going to go, or you said you look on your phone and you check the prices first. Is that right?
Pretty much, especially beginning. The first several months I was always on my phone or on my computer looking and, doing the research on eBay to see what things were actually selling for, not just what they were listed for. And early on, I would buy wholesale lots on eBay as well, and then, buy a lot of 10 to 50 items and then resell them one by one. But that was a way to find out what brands sold, what brands didn't sell. And I don't really do that anymore because the profit margin just isn't high enough. But doing that was just invaluable research. So, anyone that's going to sell on eBay has to be willing to just search endless hours on eBay to find out what's selling, how many watchers does an item have, things like that. You can look and see, okay, this is going to sell, this probably isn't going to sell.
Okay, and that'll help determine whether you put it on auction or buy it now, too, right? Or
yeah, that's a good point to bring up, too. I pretty much always do buy it now. A few reasons. One, with auction, people don't have to pay right away. And so I found that about 15 to 20% of the auctions that ended, people would never pay for it. And so you'd have to wait about a week to get your fees back and then to finally relist it for someone that actually would buy it. So that was a bit of a pain. And then I decided, well, buy it now, is more like an actual store. And so as it grew into a real business, I figured, well, it needs to look like a real business. So everything I have up is fixed price. You buy it now, you pay for it now. I ship it, almost immediately, less than a day. So it felt a little bit more like a business, like a store, and not somebody trying to get rid of their extra junk.
Yeah. And so when you went from auctions to buy it now, did you notice a difference in sales? I mean, did you see your sales drop off, or did it stay pretty much the same?
Stayed pretty much the same. The sales increased slowly but steadily for the first 9 months, and then in July of this year, 2014, it exploded. It almost doubled. So July, August, and this month, everything is just all of a sudden exploded. exploded, which I wasn't expecting because the research I did showed that the summer was the slowest time. And so I was expecting, okay, I'm going to keep building my inventory. I want to get as many items up as I can. That way when the fall and winter roll around, things are going to start flying off the shelves. So I was pleasantly surprised when July came around and things just wouldn't stop selling. And so right now I'm struggling to put up enough items each day to match the items that are going out. But I mean, that's a struggle I'm willing to have.
Yeah, that's a high-end problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
So, real quickly, I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to envision your garage here, and you say you have items on shelves and stuff. How do you keep track of 1,000 items that you have to sell? I mean, so if you sell this baseball hat, what is your method of knowing that that's on shelf 4 and it's in the back? Or how do you locate? I mean, I'm thinking 1,000 items is probably a lot of things to try and keep track of, right?
It is a lot. And, actually, it's probably, I have 1,000 unique items, and some of them there's, 10 to 20 of each one. So there's probably 12 to 1,300 things up right now. But I basically have them divided into sections of gender. So I've got women's in one section, I've got men's in one, and then I've got kids in another. And then I do it by size and then by color. So I've got a rack of women's jackets and hoodies hung up, so all the smalls are on one wall. And then if it's a white hoodie, I'll know exactly where it is, size small. If it's green women's pants, size small, I know exactly what stack they're going to be in. Because believe me, before I started sorting them, I just had them nicely folded and nicely hung up out there, and it took me forever to find items, ship them out, and in this business, time really is money, so I had to become more efficient. So it took me a long time to organize it out there so that I knew when a men's medium shirt sells, I know exactly what rack a men's medium shirt's at, and then based on color, I'm going to be able to go right to it.
Wow, it sounds incredible. It's now time for the lightning round, but before we do, let's thank our sponsors.
If you are an online merchant, chances are you've heard of Terapeak. Terapeak helps online merchants like you by providing in-depth analytics to help you pull back the curtain on your competitors' behavior, pricing techniques and strategies, supply and demand, category and product trends, and customer purchase patterns. Sound intense? It is. Terapeak is the leader in e-commerce market analysis, dedicated to helping online merchants grow their business and become more profitable. How cool would it be if you could know the new and emerging opportunities? Terapeak delivers market intelligence that is both meaningful and actionable. Terapeak analyzes over 2.4 billion transactions per year. How many of those will be yours next year? After all, if your competitors see the value in Terapeak, shouldn't you? Go to www.soyouwannasellonebay.com/Terapeak to sign up today.
And just so you know, Jackson, this is where we're going to ask you a series of questions, and you have the opportunity to answer as quickly or as long as you'd care to, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so what was your biggest fear of starting an eBay business?
That it would fail. That I would buy things and people wouldn't buy them, and then I'd have to go out and find a real job.
A real job. So how did you get beyond that fear then?
People started buying things, and so I bought more, they bought more, and then I realized this is a real business. This isn't just a part-time make money. This is something I do for a living, and I absolutely love doing.
Yeah, it sounds like you love doing it as well, and the family. So what's one piece of advice you could give someone just starting out on their eBay business?
Have excellent customer service. Always communicate with the buyer. Follow up after it's delivered, because some people are quick maybe to leave unflattering feedback, or if there was an issue, you can catch it right then. You can make it right. I've only had a few times, but there's been a handful of times, 5 or 6, where somebody wasn't happy with something. Just be ready to issue a refund, maybe a discount on a future item, but whatever you have to do to make them happy, because it's not worth getting negative feedback or, risking your store's or business's reputation over a small item. So follow up with buyers, be kind, be courteous, don't argue with them. Customer service is absolutely key in this business.
Yeah.
And as a customer, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jackson, for that. That's awesome. So if you had a chance to start all over, Jackson, with the knowledge you have now of eBay and business itself, what one thing would you do differently?
That's a good question. The thing I'd do differently was narrow my focus quicker. So my focus, which now is pretty much closed, I would have narrowed my focus quicker as opposed to buying anything I thought I could turn a profit on. So at the beginning, I was buying anything that I could make money on. I bought it, I put it up, I sold it. Now I try to stick with what I know, with what I have a lot of already, because, your expertise grows in that area. So I would say I would narrow my focus.
Yeah, that's great advice, that is. And as you go along, you sort of learn more about your business and find out exactly the best thing to do. I actually agree with that, because my focus sometimes, I find I've got so many different projects happening or something that I'm all over the place. And in fact, at that point in time, I'm not actually getting anything done.
Right.
It's, narrow the focus. I love it. So when you started this eBay empire of yours, how much confidence did you have that you could actually make money for it, let alone sort of like a living for the family?
Well, I knew I was going to make money, but to be honest with you, I don't think that I 100% believed it was going to be a living, just because it's almost like winning the lottery. Just like when I wrote my book, I really wanted to take off as an author, but the likelihood of that happening just, it wasn't very good. And while the book did fine and is doing fine, I'm not making a living or anywhere near making a living on it. But this was something more hands-on, where I found that I had a knack for finding quality items that people needed and wanted. It wasn't very long after, just a couple months after, that I realized, you know what, I told my wife, we're going to be able to do this for a living, and, I want to do this. I don't want to do anything else. I love this. This is fun.
It is fun. It is. Sitting at home with your family, going to these markets, it is fun. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's fun. And you get paid for it. Wow.
You get paid for it, and I don't want to mislead anyone. It's a lot of work.
Of course.
I'm only now, honestly, down to about 50 hours a week, maybe 60, because you have to work every day. I have to work on Saturdays and Sundays as well, though I do that at night. You have to have customer service and stuff like that. But at the beginning, I was working at least 80 hours a week for the first 6 months, so it was a lot of work.
So did you have to convince your wife that you could quit your jobs and go into this thing, or did it kind of segue into it, or was she on board with you? Because there's a lot of people out there, and I don't know your situation, but there's a lot of people out there that are trying to convince a spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife, and that we can do this, we're making it, we're okay. I'm sure it's just kind of a hard jump in a leap of faith, right?
A leap of faith is a good way to describe it. I was pretty lucky to have a real supportive wife. She's always been supportive of whatever I thought was right, whatever I thought might be good. And of course, I would always ask for her advice, because, she's smart. She has usually good leadings on what's going to be good, what's not going to. We were together. We were on the same page from the beginning, and it was the right time. We moved to a different state. We had a chance to start over. We had a little bit of money saved up where I wasn't, pressured to get a job right away. And so when it worked out right away, it was just like, okay, this is just meant to be. This is what I was supposed to do.
Love it. Meant to be, on the right path. That's great. So you mentioned before about customer service and of how important that is to you. And you probably already mentioned this question, but as an example, because it's important to people, let's say you get negative feedback, okay? To what extent do you go? Do you talk to them? Do you give them a free product? Do you offer them something else? How do you deal with the negative feedback that comes your way?
Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often. I think and actually on my profile right now, I have no negative feedback, but I have received 2 negative feedbacks that I convinced the people to change. And it was just people that I follow up with every order, so I message them because I want to be able to make sure they were happy. And if they weren't, I want to fix it. These people, for whatever reason, they didn't have a chance to check their messages. Both of them switched it to positive, but, I refunded their money. They weren't happy. One of them was a mistake of mine. There was a hole that I didn't see in a sweatshirt, and, I apologized. I refunded their money plus shipping, so they weren't out anything, and I offered them a discount on a future product. They took it, and, I had a repeat customer. Second person wasn't as nice. They weren't a very nice person. The mistake wasn't mine. She misread the size, but I ended up refunding her money anyway because it was only $12, and in the big scheme of things, I don't want people to take advantage of the feedback system, but the way it's set up right now, the sellers don't have a lot of control. The buyers have all the power. And so, thankfully, most people are honest, most people are ethical, and people are easy to deal with, but every once in a while you get someone that's difficult. Pretty much whatever I have to do to keep the positive, I will do that. I want the people to be happy.
Yep. And, I tell you what, anybody that's worked in any kind of customer service can understand what you just said there about, working with people. For the most part, people are are good, honest people, but every once in a while it's hard to work with somebody, and it's tough to deal with, but you have to do it sometimes. So, all right, let's turn just a little bit to research here. So you'd mentioned about your iPhone app and going through the thrift stores. How do you do research on something that doesn't necessarily have, let's just say you saw a sign that said "Gone Fishing" and it looked pretty cool. Do you just take a chance on it? Or, I mean, because there's probably not going to be another one on eBay, right? What kind of research do you do?
Yeah, if I can't find out something about an item, if I can't find a similar one that's sold or what the market value is for it, I'm going to take a risk on anything that is priced low, that feels like it's either good quality, it's vintage, it looks like it's going to be a collector's item. I'll just take a shot on it. If it's a little bit more expensive, like the art, for example, it was a good deal of money and I didn't want to spend it without having all the facts, and so I was able to do research, find out how many of them were listed, what they were going for, and I was very confident that I could make money on them. But when there's something that you can't find, you can pretty much tell by looking at an item whether or not someone else is going to want it based on the quality of it. And if it is, if the price is right, I'll get it. And, no matter how nice something is, if the price isn't right, I don't want all my money tied up in something that's too expensive. I'd rather buy something low, be able to sell it, instead of having all the money tied up in other items just because they're nice if they're too expensive.
Very much so, yeah. It's a good way of thinking, actually. That really is. So, okay, obviously, like Ron mentioned earlier, you've got all these products floating through, you've got 1,000 products. What tools do you use to manage your day-to-day? So, what tools do you do to list on eBay? I mean, are you using things like Turbo Lister? How do you manage your time? How do you manage what's coming in and out? Do you have things that help you?
I do. I'll pick a day, and that day I only list long sleeves. The next day I only list pants. The next day maybe it's only shirts. Whatever it might be. That way the listings are so much easier, and so I can copy and paste the basic information and then fill it in with the specific details for that item. That speeds things up, as opposed to listing a jacket, and then pants, and then a stuffed animal, and then a collector's sign. It takes forever.
Yeah,
it really does.
Idea.
It takes forever. So that helps save time. Also, at night, after everyone goes to bed, which is right now, everyone in the house is sleeping, I take pictures of items at night. And so that way, when the next day comes around and I'm listing them, I've already got the dirty work out of the way. All I have to do is list the items. So yeah, I've got things scheduled out. I ship at the same time every day, and I list things at the same time pretty much every day, and then I take pictures at the same time every day. So
you're pretty organized there.
I try to be.
Yeah, I suppose you have to be as well, don't you? I suppose there's no point not being organized if you want to make things run smoothly. That's really good advice. Well, that's the end of the lightning round, and it's actually time for us to say goodbye. We'd like to thank our special guest, Jackson Baer, for taking the time to come join us today and share with us your great experience. To you, it sounds like it's a fun job. I mean, you get to spend time with your family, and this, I really think, is what most people are looking for. Most people are looking for a way of staying at home, not having to work those corporate jobs, and it's been really great hearing your advice and talking to you today, Jackson.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I do really appreciate it, and I hope this helps someone who might be thinking about starting their own business, and maybe there's a tip in there that'll help them as well.
Definitely.
And that's the goal, Jackson. We certainly appreciate your time. And if you have a question you'd like a guest to answer on our show, just check the Ask the Experts section on our website.
Excellent. Well, we'll post all the notes from today's interview on our show notes page, which can be found at www.soyouwannastellonebay.com/show notes/Jackson Baer. But before you go, Jackson, tell our listeners out there, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way of reaching you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is just to go to namebrandthrift.com. That domain name redirects to my eBay store. You can contact me there. You can see what I have for sale, and just send me a message if you want to say hi. All those things are fine.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure that's on the show notes page. I'd love to see the picture of the one-eyed pug as well.
Yeah, that can be arranged. I know it's on my store's Pinterest page. I've got the one-eyed pug over there.
I'll have a look. That's great. Well, thanks once again, Jackson, for taking the time to come join us today. From everyone here at So You Want to Sell on eBay, I'm Ali Young.
And I'm Ron LeBeau.
Well, that's a wrap to another awesome show. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes at soyouwannastellonebay.com/iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Your eBay Podcast and Facebook at So You Want to Sell on eBay. And we can always be found at www.soyouwannastellonebay.com.
So you're wondering how you can grow your business, yet your website is currently being hosted by one of those website-in-a-box sites. Or maybe you don't have a website. Well, if you're really serious about growing your business, Then maybe it's time to get serious about who is hosting your website. Bluehost is your answer. At Bluehost, you get complete hosting solutions for as little as $4.95 per month. And while that is inexpensive, it certainly is not cheap. You get unlimited domain hosting, unlimited space, unlimited bandwidth, and much more. Bluehost has the top-rated 24/7 support team of real experts ready to offer real solutions and advice. And if that weren't enough, at Bluehost, you will never sign a contract. Go to www.soyouwantasellonebay.com/Bluehost today and take your business to a whole new level.